Corpse Grinders 2, 30 years in the sequel making. But we had a few trips to make. We had to go to the planet Ceta, see what was going on there, check out the people with the long ears, and then we found out they didn't have food and enough water. Found out that they really were planning a trip to this other place called Earth, where we have ample food and water. But anyway, that's where the story starts. It's quite a bit of a takeoff beyond the first one. But the two nephews of the original Maltby and Landau are the ones who are doing the grinding. And you mentioned a few films, but those are amongst about almost 80 other films that I've made. But those are the ones you mentioned are the ones that people never seem to forget. Never let me forget.
How many cuts did you say you've done? How many individual shots?
Individual shots, by educated guess, 1,500,000. But I crossed that mark last year. So, you know, we don't stop shooting. We're always shooting something, commercials or whatever, so it's up there. But that's 50 years of shooting.
Sure. And Chanti was in the new Corpse Grinders too?
She's in Corpse Grinders too. She plays Felina, the Catwoman from space. We were considering the subtitle, The Cat People from Space. Corpse Grinders 2, The Cat People from Space. And but then usually if you're putting anything on a marquee or anything, the fewer the letters, the fewer the words, the better they like it. And in theaters, it was always that way. If you had 3 words, they'd cut it to 2. If you had 2 words, they'd cut it to 1. But anyway.
Okay.
And Ted was holding auditions for people who were willing to wear 8-inch hairs and what was it? Shoot out in space?
Yeah, go out in space, but shoot 8-inch ears and, well, we said, of course, they'd have to go into outer space. But we had a lot of takers. We had people from all around the country that wanted to come in. Mostly what they wanted to do is to go through the corpse grinding machine. We had people coming from other states just to go through the corpse grinding machine.
That's funny. There was a haunted house, the first one I ever went to, and they did a recreation of the Corpse Grinders. And it scared the heck out of me. I was probably 9 or 10. It scared the heck out of me.
That's funny. That is funny.
Let me make a correction. I said Chanti. I'm sorry, Shanty. I was pronouncing it wrong, wasn't I?
Actually, you were right.
Was I right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Either way, I'm going to accept it.
Okay. So there was a lot of other cameos in the film too.
Oh, there's about 80 people in the film. And of course, Liz Renee has a nice part. She plays the grave digger's wife. And we have Dolores Fuller, who plays one of the members of the corporation that owns the Lotus cat food label and so on. Right. And she's a promoter for that. She's the demonstration lady that gives away free samples of Lotus cat food, which is where Felina finds the only food that they, being descendants of the cat people of Atlantis, the only food they like is that cat food, right?
So, of course, I finish up eating the food in the movie. The only human to eat Lotus cat food. Human from Ceta.
So is that going to leave room for a third sequel then?
Well, we left it at the end of the film when the U.S. government has been communicated with by the people from Ceta in their spaceship. They morphed up tons of this Lotus cat food, and it made the 2 guys very successful at getting satchels full of money because the people on Ceta can change dirt into gold by alchemy. They have this ability. And they have this ability to magically appear and disappear, morph in, as you call it, whatever. And at the end, when Landau and Maltby get their big satchel payoff from the U.S. government, this big satchel of money, they go off and say, and then Landau says, "I told you we'd be rich, Maltby." So you are set up. The other, in fact, is I play the professor who's investigating cannibalism and all this sort of thing. And I go off in the spaceship with Felina and Borath and Ubach, and we go back to the planet Ceta. And so we've got a perfect setting there for a sequel 3.
All right, so y'all set up. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that one too.
Looking forward to making it.
Looks like you have a lot of fun making the movies.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but mostly fun.
Yeah.
However, Ted could tell you about the work that went into some of the late nights.
Well, you know, actually, a lot of time went into building sets, making wardrobe, costumes, props, making the corpse grinding machine. I cast all the teeth. There's 127 teeth that go like this, you know, in the wheels that grind up the bodies, and they're on drums. And these teeth are all over these drums, and they spin, and that's what pulls in the bodies and puts them out as cat food, right?
You sound like you've actually tested this. I'm a little
Oh,
afraid.
yeah, oh, yeah, and I cast all those teeth one at a time.
And people have been asking to buy
Oh,
those
yeah,
teeth
the
too,
teeth
one
look,
at a time.
I bet.
Yeah.
they look like this with a little hook on it, you know, like the hook can drag in.
Right.
meat. So, maybe that'll be the gimmick we'll use. You know, we've always used gimmicks, on films, like on
Right.
Astro Zombies I gave away to everyone that came into the theater. Every ticket was the skull, a skeleton's head with eyes that moved around, little beads, and a neck chain and all for free just to come in and see. But
Right.
on a lot of pictures I've given away gimmicks, but now getting into theaters and using a gimmick, nobody wants that. It's all high speed, get them in, get them out. One feature only, make it 80 minutes if you can, no longer, so we can get them in 5 times in one night. And it's, you know, it's gone into a, I don't know, it's in a different world now. And the part that we used to enjoy being trying to do showy things that would make people never forget the film, that day is not here anymore. So I've got to think of something else.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just think it's interesting that I've seen the old corpse grinders machine that Ted used in original corpse grinders. And while that was low budget, it's interesting to see how technology moved right along. And he's using all these new lights on the new corpse grinder
Right.
machine. It's still low budget, but he included all the new technology.
The high-tech corpse grinder.
Right. I thought that was funny.
And wait till you see our labeling machine. I won't tell them what it is, but a lot of props and machinery from my studio that is actually, well, I'll give you one. When you make a movie, you have to code with a coding number every foot of film and every foot of soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a spinning thing, several spinning wheels and so on. And you run every inch of film through that so you can sync up the picture with the magnetic soundtrack. And you have to start them all at the same sync part. And so everybody looks at that and they say, what is this? And I say, it's a coding machine. And they go, what's a coding machine for? I says, when you make a 35mm movie, if you don't have a coding machine, you couldn't keep it in sync. You couldn't make sync. So I decided that since nobody knows what it is anyway, it's a labeler. So we make labels for the cat food, and as they spin out Lotus cat food, and they put the labels on the cans in the box, and workers carry them out. So, but there's about 80 characters in this film.
And he was away one evening and brought home the dailies, and I said, where did you get that conveyor belt? And you didn't have a conveyor. He said, heck, that wasn't a conveyor belt, that's just an old box, and someone was holding a 2x4. And
Well, the conveyor for the cans that come down into the boxing was actually a 1x6 with little 1x2 straps on it. We just rolled the can. But nobody knows. The audience can only see what the camera shows them. And they can have 4 people on the other end of the board saying, like that. But if the camera's on the board showing the cans rolling, nobody cares.
Right.
It's what they see, that's what they get.
You got your illusion.
Yeah.
Sure. That's great.
probably is the funniest thing is someone grinding out the meat in the corpse grinders, and his assistant, his main assistant, Adam Lane, he's crouched down in that little box. He said, "Oh, please, Ted, have you finished with this shot? I can't do it anymore." His voice coming out of his box, you know.
It may be high tech, but our grinder was Armstrong motor. On the other one, we had a little motor attached to the blades, but this one.
Anything in particular you use for the meat?
Oh.
Do I want to know?
Well, I'll say this. I don't know if Liz has seen this. She has probably, Liz Renee.
She hasn't seen it.
When
Okay.
she's ground up, more peas come out of the grinder when Liz is ground up.
I noticed there was something green in there
Right.
when it was
Yeah.
coming out of the trailer.
Yeah.
Well, what I tried to do is to make it look like real flesh that wasn't too old. Because if they caught them or they embalmed them in the story with pork and beef and fish flavored embalming fluid, you know, they would be fresher bodies. And so I had to make the meat that comes out of the grinding machine look like flesh, you know, like in those little jars we're putting out. But actually, I don't know if we'd be spoiling it by telling everybody
I think
that.
enough's enough.
Yeah,
A magician's secret.
A magician's secret.
There you
that is.
go.